It's experiments!
The shooting of Back to the Future 2 and 3 was really remarkable. Most of the same crew that shot Back to the Future 1 came back because we had a great time. They wanted to do another one. And everybody got along really well. Bob, of course, is a prince on the set, rarely ever loses temper. And here we shot 2 movies over a course of 11 months with kind of a 3-week hiatus from when we went from Back to the Future 2 to the Northern California to shoot the Western stuff. At the end of it, everybody was still friends. It was great. Now, the most hellacious part of it was when we were finishing Back to the Future 2 while we were still shooting Back to the Future 3. And that's where we kind of had to divide our forces. The editors had to stop working on assembling Back to the Future 3 and go completely on Back to the Future 2. And in fact, while Bob was shooting a lot of the train stuff on Part 3, I was back in Los Angeles supervising the final dub on Back to the Future 2. And then there came a period of several weeks where after Bob would wrap photography up in Sonora on Back to the Future 3, he'd get in a private plane, fly down to Burbank. We'd have dinner waiting for him on the dubbing stage. He'd come to the dubbing stage. We'd play back the reels that we'd done that day. He'd listen to them, he'd make his changes. He'd sleep at the Sheraton Universal. He'd get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock the next morning, go to the Burbank airport, get on a plane, show up on the set in Northern California, and shoot Back to the Future 3. And this went on for about 3 weeks.
I'll say, Doc, come in. He'll listen to his walkie-talkie, and I'll lift it up, and I'll say, we're going at 25 miles an hour. So it was like one huge movie that took a year to do. And it was okay. The only thing that I regret was it was very difficult to be editing the second movie while shooting the third movie. That's where I think the second movie suffered a little bit because I wasn't able to give it my full attention. There just aren't enough hours in the day to be doing 2 movies and giving it your full attention.
Action!
When you do 2 films back to back over the course of a year, people have lives. I mean, babies are born, things go on. Within the course of that year, my son was born and my father passed away. So it was like, whole big cataclysmic things happen in your life, and it's all tied to that movie.
Great Scott, it's me. And it is true. All of it. It is me who goes back there and gets shot.
It's not gonna happen, Doc. After you fix the time circuits and put new tires on the DeLorean, I'm going back to 1885 and I'm bringing you home.
What was great about the Western motif or style of Part 3 was that Part 2 was so technological. And there's so much apparatus and so much exposition that Chris had to lay out. This means this and this means this. So to be out riding horses around up in Northern California, it was a break almost. It was relaxing in comparison. I look at it now, it's a grueling schedule, but it's the kind of thing you beat yourself with 2 hammers. When you only hit yourself with 1, it feels good. So that was a lot of fun. That sequence was really great.
The 1880s were the Wild West of America. It was just pre-industrial revolution. That's when the railroads came across. And that was the most romantic time of the American West, as the post-Civil War era. But for me, it was 1885 was a natural because it was exactly 100 years from 1985. So we went exactly 100 years into the past. The thing that's interesting about all 3 of the Back to the Future movies is that the Michael J. Fox character is not the pivotal character of any of the stories. In the first Back to the Future, his father, the Crispin Glover character, is the pivotal character. And in the third one, the Doc is a pivotal character. And then see, the Michael character is sort of just this master of ceremonies type character who has only one problem, which is always trying to get back to his own time. And he takes us on all these adventures, but the characters that make the true dramatic character changes are always someone else. So it was the natural for us that the Doc's character be the one who has the dramatic problem in the third movie.
Shot in the back by Buford Tannen. over a matter of $80. September 7th. That's this Monday. Now I wish I'd paid him off. And who's this beloved Clara? I don't know anyone named Clara.
In trying to figure out Back to the Future 3, we kind of decided that we'd done everything that we could with Marty's family. Let's concentrate on Doc. Let's find out some more about Doc Brown. And let's do the most insane thing that anybody could imagine, Doc Brown in love. In fact, Back to the Future 3 was Christopher Lloyd's first on-screen kiss. He'd never been kissed on screen in a movie before. So we said, all right, that's a great idea. Now, what kind of character would Chris fall in love with and would fall in love with Doc Brown? A school teacher, that's a woman that would be traveling to the West. A school teacher that liked Jules Verne, yeah. And there was really only one actress that we could conceive of for the part, and it was Mary Steenburgen. And when Mary got the script, she wasn't quite sure whether she wanted to do it. She says it was her kids that said, oh, Mom, you gotta be in a Back to the Future movie. You gotta be in a Back to the Future movie. She said, okay. And she met Bob and she met me, and we hit it off real well. And she said, yeah, okay, great, I'll do this movie.
On all three of the Back to the Future movies, it seemed like I was always in school. Someone was teaching me something. I'd accomplish one thing. I'd figure out the guitar part, or I'd figure out how to skateboard, or I'd figure out how to ride a horse, or I'd learn how to shoot a gun. It was always something, and you'd get that done, and you'd go, wow, I'm glad I got that shot, that's in the can, and then here comes the next technical guy to teach me the next thing. So yeah, I learned about 1 million different skills, and I've forgotten them all.
All right, here we go again. And rolling. In camera rolling. Mark. Action!
Shooting a Western was a dream come true for a lot of people, and particularly the stunt guys, because not that many Westerns are made anymore, and these guys would kill to ride horses, jump off of or onto horses, run around on trains. So we had every great stunt man in Hollywood wanting to work on Back to the Future 3. And that made life a lot easier because these guys were all very, very experienced riders. And the actors got very excited about getting to learn how to ride a horse. And of course the Wranglers got excited about teaching these actors how to ride a horse. Tom Wilson spent hours and hours learning how to ride and throw that lariat in Part 3. That was a very difficult thing to do, but it's him doing it. The photography in Back to the Future 3 was, of course, DP's dream. Dean Cundey always wanted to shoot a Western. Heck, everybody always wanted to make a Western. So the idea that we could use those kind of filters to create this bright yet colorful, sort of with a sepia aspect to it, that was something that we were after, and I think Dean just captured it brilliantly.
1, 2, 3, 4.
My collaboration with Alan is a very close one. I mean, we've done every movie together and every TV show since Romancing the Stone, where we first found each other. I collaborate with Alan the same way I do an actor. I consider the music to be a character in the movie, and I give Alan direction like I give an actor. Most of the time, we're always in sync, but in the times that we aren't, when Alan asks for direction, I give him the same type I give an actor, which is what I feel the music should be doing emotionally. And I never, ever suggest what it should sound like or ever start to talk about it in any kind of technical terms or musical terms, because I don't know anything about it, but I know what I want to evoke as a feeling and as an emotion. And I think Alan is very receptive to that, and I think that's what makes our collaboration what it is.
One of the dictums that Bob gave to Alan was, I don't have a lot of money, I don't have a lot of really big images on the screen in Back to the Future 1, so make the music really big so that it'll make the movie seem bigger than it really is. And Alan delivered that in spades.
Here.
I already got a gun.
I think the third movie is much more of a human journey and more spiritual idea. The first movie is very much an 80s movie. I mean, it really taps into that materialistic idea of what success is in the 80s. I mean, we really played that, what young people were thinking, which maybe isn't as admirable as it felt at the time.
You okay? Is everything all right?
Oh, yeah. Everything is great.
Dad! Come on! Come on, run! You can dance better than that!
How you write anything is always the hardest thing to describe. I think our humor is very irreverent. Our feelings about humor is that we share this one true belief, which is that nothing is sacred, and everything can and should be lampooned and made fun of and exposed for what it really is.
Since you're new here, I'm gonna cut you a break today. So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
So we share that belief about humor. It just comes from the energy of being in the room together, and we just start layering jokes on top of each other. It's a true sort of collaboration. There's no kind of form to it. It's sort of free-form writing. And then when we agree that something works, we write it down.
Tell me, future boy, who's president of the United States in 1985?
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, the actor? Then who's vice president? Jerry Lewis?
Reagan loved Back to the Future, and the story that we heard was that when the Reagan joke came on, he made the projectionist stop the movie, roll it back, and run it again. He laughed his head off. He loved it. So he took it exactly in the right way. It's funny, some people think, boy, you guys really slammed it to Reagan, and we weren't doing it so much as a slam at Reagan as to say, isn't it insane that an actor could become president? Whether you agree with Reagan or not, this is an insane idea, and that's what people would be reacting to. One of the biggest kicks that we got was when President Reagan, at the end of one of his State of the Union addresses, he quoted Back to the Future. He said, "We're taking America back to the future, and as they said in that movie, where we're going, we won't need roads." At that moment, Back to the Future entered a level into the American culture, into the world culture probably, that it'll be there forever. The phrase Back to the Future is something now that shows up in magazines all the time.
The thing I learned about doing the Back to the Future trilogy was that sequels are a very, very tough thing to try to pull off. The problem with doing sequels is that everyone has an opinion. When you're doing a movie that nobody knows what it's about, it's your work, it's your movie, and the audiences accept it with an open mind. But a sequel, everyone is writing their own sequel, subconsciously or even consciously. I mean, everybody has a feeling about what it is that they want to see, and you can't please everyone. I was fortunate that I got into a trilogy situation with wonderful actors. I mean, that was great. I mean, they were just fabulous. The whole group was.
To work with Steven Spielberg, Bob Zemeckis, people of this quality, and a film like this, it was great. We did a lot of sequences where I can't believe I did those things. I can't believe I wiped out on skateboards and was dragged behind cars and was dragged behind horses, and I got hung. Hoverboard stuff had harnesses and stuff on me and swinging me through the air. Now I would look at it and say, I'm not doing that. But when Bob Zemeckis asks you to do it, you do it because you know you're part of something magical.
People have started referring to Back to the Future and all three of the movies as classics. I think we're still too young and the movies are still too recent for anybody to say that they're classics. But watching them again recently, I was very impressed at how well they hold up, particularly in comparison to other movies from around the same time. There's something just very special about this story that everybody can identify with. And that story is a good story. The idea that trying to imagine what your parents were like when they were kids, that just touches everybody, and it's not restricted to one time or another. I would say that the filmmaking Bob's directing, the acting, all the casting and the characterizations all came together at a sort of a critical mass and a perfect fusion to create something very, very special. Everybody that was making the movie and was involved in it really wanted to be there, really wanted to be doing it, really put 150% into it, and I think that it shows.